Hey, what's going on, everybody? Max here with BB, and today for 10 Minutes Max, we're going to be talking about Ethereum, its potential move that it's setting up, and the implications of that move for the Ethereum ecosystem, specifically some of my favorites, some memes. So, guys, let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. I headed home early for the day today. It was just such boring price action. I was like, you know what? Let me just make this video at home in the comfort of my own home. And then when I'm done, I can be done for the day, guys. So, all right, here we are. We are looking at ETH right now. This cycle so far for ETH and really most things, even including Bitcoin, could really be summed up with the following: very, very short windows of amazing vertical price action and then a prolonged range, which obviously kind of sucks. And what I mean by that is, oh, look, we go straight up for like, 2 or 3 days. And then we basically just get like this, which is now we are on almost, nearly 2 months of sideways, right? And if you really think about it, right, you might look at this and be like, "Oh, we had a couple little moves." Well, maybe we did, right? So I'd kind of view this as like your range high. I'd view this as, more or less your range low. You could maybe tighten it up to like this, right? But like range high, range low. And if you really think about it, we've basically just been doing this right here. And you can we could, let me find the color here. We could even just kind of blur this baby out right here, right? That's not the right color, but you get the point, right? Like you can kind of just imagine that didn't exist and imagine this didn't exist, and like you've just been stuck in this tight little bracket forever. But I'm not here to complain about that, because what I want to talk about is that might actually be coming to an end. We might be getting ready for our next markup very, very soon. All right. So despite everybody being bored to death because of the horrible price action, I think I'm seeing some constructive things out there. So for one, let's just take a look ultra high time frame, and then we'll kind of dissect a little bit more granularly what might be going on. So when I look at this, I say, all right, this is one monster range that we've basically been in since Q1 of last year. This entire move down here was a giant deviation. All right. I'm viewing this as a move or deviation below fair value, right? We lost the range low, but we've since reclaimed it, right? We had that crazy move up. We've been chopping, as I just showed you, for damn near 2 months now. We had a little shakeout, retested the range low, and I think things look pretty good, right? Things look pretty good. Altogether, they look pretty good. Let's just do this for fun, right? Let's invert the chart. I will make this just blue for deviation. When I look at it like this to kind of help remove any of my biases, right? I could look at this and say, all right, we clearly had like some shift of trend here, right? You can see when you flip it like this looks pretty terrible. Like if the chart looked like this, and obviously I inverted it just to help people kind of remove their biases, I'd be looking at this going, oh dear, this is a huge amount of supply overhead, right? Again, if the chart looked like this is inverted, I'd be going, okay, we had an uptrend, and then we lost our diagonal and we lost our range high. We tucked back underneath. This looks like a bearish retest of overhead supply. This looks like it wants to go lower, right? And that, that is true, right? And then you just flip it like this and you say, okay, well, it's actually not supply, it's actually demand, right? So it's actually very bullish. But sometimes flipping the chart can help you remove your bias, right? And I think from time to time, it's helpful to do an exercise like that, because our brains have a way of kind of playing a trick on us. When you watch something over and over and over again, you might be looking, ultra locally at this little range here and somehow convince yourself like, oh, look at that horrible sell-off that we had here, on the 30-minute. It's completely over. When in reality, you zoom out and you're swing trading and you look at this and you go, oh, wait, this is actually like not so bad. This is like a shift of market structure to the upside with a range reclaim. We've got demand below us. Like, it really doesn't look so bad, right? Now, something interesting happened this morning, actually. And this doesn't have to do with ETH directly, but I think it's indicative of something to come here. So something that we saw this morning was this nice little move here on Solana, right? Solana pumped from 150 to 160 basically. Okay, now it's kind of bleeding back in a little bit, no big deal. But why do we care about this? Well, we had some maybe anticipated, but nobody knew for sure type of news that came out this morning where now we just have, as of this morning, a Solana ETF approved, but with staking, right? So there's going to be a yield component to it, which is super bullish. The staking component of ETFs is not necessarily the most attractive thing to me. I don't really care about, 2 to 5% APY necessarily. I'm in crypto. I trade meme coins, things like that. You guys obviously follow the channel. But there's a lot of huge money out there, institutional capital that is very, very attracted to yield, even if it is minimal, right? So this staking is not something that should be discounted, right? A lot of crypto guys might not be super interested, but institutional capital is. Okay. Now, the reason for that is one, it generates something, right? So you're holding a spot position and also you're getting some yield or dividends paid out to you. But on top of that, it's more significant because it's something that differentiates these altcoin ETFs from something like the Bitcoin ETF, which obviously does not have some sort of positive carry component to it where you get a kickback or a yield or whatever it may be. You're just holding spot Bitcoin, which is a great strategy. But for those that are interested in something different, this is exactly that thing that's going to draw in huge institutional capital. Now, why are we looking at the Sol chart? Why are we talking about the Sol ETF? Well, the Sol ETF came out this morning, but it was trading differently last night, right? It was trading like somebody knew something, like this little walk up here, into the ETF. Can't remember exactly what Bitcoin was doing, but I don't believe it was following perfectly. So here's actually Bitcoin. So this is Bitcoin down below, and this is Sol up top. I'll even go to the lower time frame here. Okay. You can see that in the day leading up to the Sol ETF announcement, what we actually saw was Bitcoin or Sol moving up like this. And at the same time, we saw Bitcoin pulling back, right? Which is funny, right? Because typically, like, you wouldn't expect to see an altcoin kind of like ramping like this into a huge pop when Bitcoin, which really determines the directionality of the altcoin market, is sliding, right? So we were kind of watching Sol this weekend being like, this is strange, right? Like, this is bizarre. And then, of course, now it makes sense that we got this announcement that's, pop price up. Because to me, I look at this and I say, well, insider trading, right? Some insiders knew this. They started buying Sol in anticipation of this pop, and now they're probably selling and taking profit, right? Crime 101 in crypto. We see this kind of stuff all the time. But anyways, let's head back to ETH. Now, here's the thing. The Sol ETF is important because it sets sort of like a precedence or case law, right? Like, it's now legal and accepted to have a yield component, a staking component within these institutional grade products. That's most likely coming to Ethereum. So also, when I look at the ETH chart right now, this ETH chart to me kind of feels the same way that Sol did 24 hours ago. To me, it feels like ETH is ramping and holding up better than it should be, while Bitcoin is sliding. Okay, so again, this might be one of those instances where we know that they're trying to get the Ethereum ETF staking approved. They haven't done it yet. Sol just got approved, and Sol was trading differently, kind of like ETH is right now. So I'm having a hunch that we are seeing insider positioning into Ethereum, or at least at a minimum, wild speculation from market participants like myself that an Ethereum ETF with staking approval is coming imminently, maybe even this week or next week. And we'll probably see the same kind of pop from ETH that we did with Sol. Now, it looks really, really interesting here as well, right? Like, the positioning of an announcement like that is just as important as the announcement itself, right? So like, we have this giant range low retest, broke our diagonal downtrend. Things look pretty good here, right? Now, on top of that, you have some large cap altcoins, one of my favorites being Pepe, that in my opinion looks absolutely ready for higher as well. You make a slight modification here so we can put this into log mode and actually see it. But to me, ETH looks like it's ready to move well above its range high. Like, I don't think 3K is even going to be a battle. I think we're probably going to see like upper threes to low fours within the next 30 to 45 days. And I want to talk about the conditions in which our Ethereum beta, premier Ethereum beta, stuff like Pepe, thrives in, right? So let's take a look at this really simply. For one, let's identify kind of our bear market range lows here, right? Not a literal bear market, but like, I mean, I guess this technically was in the bear market over here, but you know what I mean? Like big, huge sell off and then a reaccumulation, and then we move on from there. Okay. To me, this feels incredibly similar to this over here, where you had these giant pullbacks, squeeze markups, and then a slow bleed back into the bear market reaccumulation to retest it as demand. Okay. And furthermore, we could even look at something like this and say we even had, similar diagonal trend line breakouts right here. Right. Look at this. Similar kind of breakouts. So you got your bear market accumulations. I'll put this in green just so we can remember that it's Pepe. Right? So ETH up top, Pepe down below. Bear market, deviation, diagonal trend line breakout, squeeze higher, secondary range with kind of slow bleed back into demand, and then you get the pop. Now, where does ETH really outperform? Or I'm sorry, where does Pepe and I guess ETH really outperform, right? We're looking for the move like this. This is why everybody holds shit coins, is you want to catch a move like this, right? So if we are going to catch a move like this, right, a huge move, when did that happen, right? Did it line up with ETH? Well, let's pull up the Pepe chart. We'll move it down here. So we've got ETH up top. We got Pepe down below. I'll make ETH blue just like this so we can keep them straight. So ETH up top, Pepe down below. And now let's do this. We're looking for the 10x out of Pepe, right? We want the big move. Well, look at what happened to ETH when Pepe went 10x, right? ETH started going vertical. It just ramped. It ramped from like 2K, 2100, 2200 straight up to 4K, which by the way is kind of what I think we're going to do right now. You were in this little scammy, dinky range right here for a couple months, and then you just went vertical. And in my view, we're kind of doing the same thing right now. We're in this rinky dinky little range, and I think we're about to just go vertical and scam higher, which of course has huge implications for something like Pepe, because look at what happened. Right here, E starts going vertical. Pepe pulls a 10x in 30 days, right? So just looking at this very, very clearly right here, I'll change this to blue. If we can see ETH put in the scam of all scams higher, maybe it's off of, staking ETF announcement, maybe it's something else. We can very clearly identify the conditions in which, Pepe would go crazy, and it's on a move like this for ETH. So, if we do see ETH, for lack of a better term, just start scamming higher, which I think it kind of looks like it's going to, then I think you could expect a huge move out of something like Pepe, given that structurally it looks almost identical. I'll make this a little bit thicker so you can see it. Right? You had your diagonal trend line breakout Q1 of last year. I think you can draw some comparisons to what we're seeing here. You had your red bear market accumulation, right? Your deviation below, slow bleed back here into demand, right? And then we could even draw another trend line right here, right? Another kind of local diagonal. We got the same thing going on right here, right? So I think that the stage is set, guys. I do. ETH looks good here. I know it's been really annoying to look at for the last 60 days, roughly. You get like 2 weeks of awesome. No, I'm sorry, less. You get like a week of awesome price action, and then you get nothing. But just as quick as you get bored to death, things can heat up really quickly. And I think that just given how these charts look, like ETH to me looks like it deviated below a year-long plus range going back to Q1 of last year. Had a scam back into the range low. It's holding range low deviation demand region. Pepe's doing the same kind of fractal that it was doing back here, all the way through like its bear market low into the Q1 bleed, and then it springs and it pulls a 10x in a very short period of time. I think within the next 30 to 45 days, things could be looking a lot different. A lot different. Okay. I'm very, very convicted in this setup. Stocks are at all-time highs. DXY, the dollar index looks terrible, which has a negative correlation with crypto. Like dollar weakness is risk asset strength. Yields look like they're rolling over. Small cap companies are starting to move higher. Like crypto stocks are looking really good. Coinbase and Robinhood both ripping. Like, let me put it this way. If we don't pump out of this setup, then I'd be very, very, very shocked. Like the stage, the backdrop is really set perfectly for much higher. And I'm hoping you guys can look at this visual and say, yeah, there's probably a much more likely chance that we scam a lot higher out of this setup than there is, from a breakdown. Anyways, guys, that is it for today. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you guys tomorrow with another YouTube video. Everybody have a great day, stay safe, and take care.